But yeah, so it's good to chat with you. How are you at the moment?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, no complaints, can't complain. Nothing really to report in. We got some festivals beginning to kick. Festival season is beginning to start in the UK, indoor one dayers and things like that. So and download is in a few weeks' time. Download festival. So it's fun stuff's beginning to happen.
Yeah. There's a Temple of what's it called? There's a Leeds festival I always wanted to go see. It's a Temple of Boom that used to, or there's a big festival over there in Leeds that a bunch of my friends had played before. I'd always
Yeah.
wanted to go to, and I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. Yeah, I'm in London, so don't. I mean, I've been to Leeds a few times, but not enough to think of what it would be. Um,
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a couple. It always seems like there's some really good UK festivals going on, but you said they're primary for you guys. It's more spring and beginning of summer.
yeah, so it starts right about now, and then starts happening over certain weekends, sort of in the cities, and then you get the bigger ones like Download, Bloodstock later in the year,
Right.
August, Reading and Leeds in August. So it basically starts now and just takes over the entirety of summer into September.
Okay. Yeah. For here, it seems like it's the end of summer into fall for us. Is really what at least the festivals that we play tends our year tends to get busy in the back half.
That's interesting because even like in Europe, because the whole point of why it kind of kicks off in the UK is because Europe also starts doing festivals from this point as well, all the way through summer too as well. So Germany and Spain and all the other European countries, they're all
Yeah.
sharing bands.
Right. Yo, that makes sense. I would like it if it was that way here, but yeah, it tends to be end of summer into the fall. There's a couple hardcore ones in the spring, but it seems like here for all genres, it's typically fall. So that's
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, fair enough. What's keeping you busy right now? And is it a good kind of busy?
Uh, in my personal one, a lot keeps me busy. And in the band busy as well. Like I'm a firefighter, EMT for the city of Detroit, and right now I'm in paramedic academy. So when we're not playing shows, I'm buried in my studies for the next 9 months, and then in the midst of that, we have multiple festivals, a couple weekend runs around the country, our next record coming out and stuff. So in my personal life, it is a constant running gun. As a
Good
band,
then.
it's been us preparing for the release, which I don't know when this interview will come out, but from today, it's in about 9 days.
Well, the goal is to get this up, but it will be up the week of release because, of course, we are so close. It's May 16th, the new album, your second full-length album, A Vivid Depiction of Collapse. May 16th via Smartpunk Records. I've heard it. It is an fabulous record, a genuinely brilliant record that is going to get
Thank you.
better and better as the year goes on because it's one of those that you keep returning to, and the more you hear it, the better it gets. The more you unpack, the more layers you find. Proper album of the year contender stuff. Where's your head at with it right now, though? Consider we are 9 days out at the time of recording. Are you desperate to kind of see it go out now?
Well, first, thank you very much for that. Very many kind of words that I don't really not sure what to expect yet because with it not being out,
Hmm.
um, more of our PR is directed post release. So there is we couldn't be more proud of the record, but we are just generally a band of just dudes filled with anxiety. So for us, it's a lot of man, really don't know what to expect. Hoping people like kind of the direction we've leaned into. So that definitely, kind of rekindles my fire a bit, so to speak. I'm super excited for it to be out. It's everything. It's one of the first releases I've ever been a part of where I didn't listen to it over and over again, thinking, "Oh, I wish we'd have done this differently."
Oh.
I feel like a lot of albums, they sit for 6 months to a year. By the time they come out, you're like, "Ah, I wish we'd have done this differently." It still feels very fresh to me. We recorded it last summer, in last July. It comes out. So what is that? 10 months. It still feels very, very incredibly fresh to me. So I'm very eagerly anxious, waiting for its release.
Have you spent much time kind of looking around socials online, sort of see the response, particularly as Consequence and Broadcast has been out about a month as well, so there's been time for people to kind of hear that and start to say things.
Yeah, that one was very, very incredibly positive. As well as like it got shared in the Furnace Fest community. Then like some of the festivals were playing and stuff, and that one, since that one leans into more convention, I didn't know if that would sort of turn people away a little bit or not.
Mm.
It didn't. It really really went just kind of overwhelmingly positive. And I try to be that person that has the benefit of the doubt, but also takes everything with a grain of salt. But I can just
Hmm.
say openly, it's been received incredibly well, as well as the single right before the double single we released the month before,
Yep.
which is a 2-track called The Damning Variable and Collar Radio. And that one also just went extremely, extremely well. But we didn't announce the record with that one. That one was kind of treated as if it was going to be just a couple singles,
Yeah.
and then we announced the record with the next one, and it's gone very well. There's just a lot of I feel like we're on deck. Like right now, it feels like, all right, the record is ready. It's keyed up. Let's see what it does. So I'm trying to remain realistic. You know what I mean? We have already done what I, as an artist, want to do, which is record it
Hmm.
and release and prepare to release it. What it does beyond this, is all exceeding my expectations. I think a lot of the guys feel the same way.
You feel like you've accomplished the goal you set out to do. Now it's going to go out. Well, there's going to go out and it's going out into the world, walking on its own 2 feet. There's nothing you can do at this stage anyway, except to sit
Right,
back and hope that people enjoy it the way you do as well.
right.
What do you think though? If you were to sum up what you think the record says about Wounded Touch and where you stand right now.
I think it represents us being elevated to a level we didn't expect, and our answer to it. When we started, we were a band for a little bit right before lockdown in the States. And then everything, to me, the band didn't really become a band until the end of 2020, which is when we wrote our debut record and recorded it. And we kind of came out of lockdown swinging. We were on the first Furnace Fest. We played a couple festivals, and then on the record, we toured the UK, and the band just came out the gate swinging, and we did not expect the opportunities that were handed to us, and we just kept getting offered bigger and bigger stuff. Nothing like we didn't go viral. It's been a very steady
Yeah.
ascent, but I feel like this record is us going, okay, there are some expectations of us at this point. So what is our answer to that? We can be a little more daring and lean into some of the conventions we probably wouldn't have on the first record. So let's challenge ourselves. And the whole record felt like musically, lyrically, everything was us challenging ourselves to make that step and not move laterally.
I'm fascinated by that because it does feel like a statement from you. I don't want to break down every individual track, but I just want to highlight, for example, the opener, If I Could Make You Pay My Own, I think is one of the best opening tracks I've heard this year. Truly spectacular start. It's just a starting
Thank you
point to
so
get
much.
people in of how imaginative and creative the album is. Clearly, you had a vision. You had I don't know if it was that clear at the start, but you had a vision. Did you in the earliest point of creating a record, did you know what you wanted specifically to do?
Um, we knew genre-wise that we wanted to lean into um, a more focused path, which for us is we're really into the '90s mathcore stuff, like Converge and Dead Guy, but then we're really into the mid 2000s post-hardcore. And on the first record, we kind of leaned into a lot of different stuff, and we kind of tried to narrow our path a little bit. Um, that the opening track's interesting though. So the idea for that was that pattern and opening with the it was originally going to be vocals and not the voice, but that whole stuff and the riff was something that I came up with, and I'm transparently not a musician. I'm just a vocalist through and through, but I came up with that riff and just that whole ba, ba-na-na, ba-na. I voice texted that to Mike, our guitarist, and I said, oh, I'm thinking something like this. And it was a voice memo. And he wrote the song that night based on this riff that I just mouthed to him. And then we kind of just built one, like, all right, it'll do that, and it'll do that. And a lot of the record kind of felt that way, where we had these unconventional skeletons that we just fleshed up together in a room. Whereas on the last record, we didn't get to do that. We, wrote through Zoom in our own places while in lockdown. And this record, we got to write together. So it feels a little more organic and more human to me. And with that, there's some strange ideas that I don't think we would have come up with had it just been somebody tabbing out a song and presenting it to one another. I think there's a lot of weird, happy accidents that occur while we're writing together. But the vision to me starts with that song, and everything else kind of centered around that feeling, in one direction or another. But it was interesting because when we recorded it, Andy said that we recorded it out of order. So when we started putting it in order, we went with that one, and Andy Nelson, who recorded it, was like, "Damn, this is how the record starts." Okay, that's a bold move. So when him saying that told me, okay, good or bad, if it is striking, that's enough for me. If it feels bold one way or another, I'm happy with that.
Bold, great choice of word for that to describe that. I mean, but like, I'm talking the intro. I could highlight many others. Even if we go right to the very end, Vultures Await Them, Son is literally an absolutely spectacular way to close the record. For example, what I'm trying to tell people and express here is that it is from beginning to end an absolute delight to listen to. But even then, you had the vision, and it was fairly clear, and how you're working on it seems to come together quite naturally, I guess, what you described, particularly compared to what you did in the first one. But did you find, as you're working your way through tracks and you're creating what this record would be, that it started to transform in a way that maybe you didn't expect, even from your personal perspective as the vocalist?
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot more that, when you write it, you think, oh, that's the slow song. Oh, that's the melodic song. Oh, that's the screamo, like more like full-time song. And then but then everything started to blend in a way where I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt much more cohesive and like a breathing movement of music than I realized. And then I think the moment where I was like, okay, this is a whole piece, was when we wrote this track of the record called Antakif, which is like an experimental, like industrial type track. That was the one where I was like, okay, we're coming up with something here, and I don't know what it is, but this what should be an interlude kind of skippable track turned into a track I returned to a lot when listening to it. And I think as we were recording that one, that was when I realized, like, okay, we're being a lot more meaningful in our decisions than I realized. So maybe this whole thing will feel like a large piece of music on the whole, rather than a collection of 11 random songs.
Can you put your finger on as to why you as a group who effectively were so locked in? Clearly you were connecting on a creative level to not just pull out, as you say, a collection of songs that would have been maybe good on their own, but to put them in such a cohesive album, and for it to feel from beginning to end necessary.
It feels like a lot of happy accidents. I want to say, yeah, we really took some classes and we really knew what we were doing. And to be perfectly honest, I think that would be disingenuous to say. I think there are a lot of happy accidents on this record. I think there's a lot of things that we just did not intend. There's a lot of parts where I was like, wow, I did not think that would be the heavy part of the song, or wow, I did not think that's how that was going to come across. So there is a lot of moments like that where I don't know necessarily what it was that had it locked in. But there's even like there's two songs on the record that Mike and Kyle had written 10 years ago in an old band. Like musically, they wrote the guitar riff, and we started to get near the end of the record, and we're like, all right, we're going to the studio in 3 weeks. We gotta fill a little bit more. And they were like going through some old hard drives, and they pulled those out. and they still felt like they fit as a whole. And that's the songs Shield of White Roses and Every Grieving Piece. And those songs really fit. It was just serendipitous because they both really fit the vibe and the mood and everything of the record. But the guitar riffs were 10 years old at that point from another thing that they had been trying to write a decade earlier. So there was just a lot of serendipitous moments and happy accidents on this record. And maybe it'll come to me as time goes on, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things that the end result speaks for itself. It doesn't necessarily have to be nailed down exactly why. Ultimately, you will have developed as a musician, as an artist, over the last few years in between the records, of course, as well. So that's an important factor to take into account. And you've mentioned the difficulties or the differences, I guess, between the writing on the first album compared to this. Obviously, COVID and all that stuff. Uh, and obviously, there's a lot of negativity around it. But was there anything good that you looked back on from the writing of the first album that you were able to take from that process and use for the process of the writing the second album?
Oh yeah. I think we were really anxious when we were writing that first record because there was still talk of going back into lockdown. So there was a panic of, all right, this might get shut down at any moment. So every single day, we recorded that first record in 5 days, and there were no moments of stopping. There was not like we hit the ground running on it and never stopped. And it you can feel it. It's a frantic, anxious record. Even with the title American Anxiety, there's a lot of anxiety going into that record. And I think with this record, we took some of that anger and frustration, but we were able to be a little more patient. It's like that record was almost like a acute reaction, and this one feels like a patient, long-term plan. Like if I could think of one as like a knee-jerk reaction of anger, this one would be like a revenge that was years in planning. That's how I would compare the two, if I could compare them to like an act of violence. And that this record definitely feels a lot more, not deliberate, but we just allowed ourselves to be patient and say, hey, we don't need to use it. We'd write songs and throw them out. No, that's not what we need right now. Whereas on the first record, it was cool. That's a song. We need a song.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I mean,
yeah, just trusting yourself a little more.
You said it yourself. You didn't even know if you were going to end back up in lockdown again. So of course there was like a time limit suddenly put on things, and obviously in most cases, best work and best art and stuff like that doesn't come when you're trying to rush something. Of course,
Right.
not to suggest that album isn't a banger, because it is. Like let's not forget that it's just this is a developed Wood and Touch, and that's exciting for me too, as well as a listener, to experience.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Well, let's talk about your vocals then, particularly on this album, particularly areas that perhaps you started to tap into and do things a little differently for yourself. Either maybe that they were particularly challenging or just fun. What kind of things was a bit different for you this time around?
This time around, I just was willing to go with my gut on parts. I think like on there was a lot of on the first record there was a lot of let's do it again, let's do this, let's try this again, let's do that, and just there I don't know why I felt like a lot of pressure on the first one to keep searching and digging for something better, and then I'd start to wear my voice out and get frustrated and be like, yeah, fine, I'll go with what I did that was suitable. I feel like on this record there was a lot of trusting my gut on what felt right, and just really not trying to phone it in, but also not trying to do more than is required. Like, hey, this feels right for this part, this suits it, that's what we're going with. Otherwise, I'm overthinking it. So I tried to just have a little more trust in myself on this one, and it made it more fun to do like some of the singing parts on it. Like we did it a little bit on the first record. We leaned into it a little more on this one and more of like the Glassjaw type influence. And I feel like on this record, it was fun to just be able to do that and knowing that everybody trusted me. Everybody in the band was like, no, if that's what you feel this part needs, we're on board. So it made recording it a lot more pleasant and a lot more exciting.
Overall, a comfortable experience?
Yeah, surprisingly, the record might not sound like we were all comfortable at that time, but in the studio, I'd like to have some cool anecdote about frustration and anger and all this stuff happening, but it was just a very pleasant experience because it was the first time all of us had been able to just be away from home and away from work and just in a room together, just playing and recording music.
From a headline grabbing, yeah, tell me a story of how you almost came to blows or you blew out your voice doing
Right.
something stupid, right? But a fan, a listener, and wants to just hear, hey, you had a good time. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to say like, oh, there was a home invasion in the studio and we had to fight off all these people and it was, we wrote a song. No, there's no really outlandish story. The only thing was I had to leave training in the midst of fire academy to go record and go straight back. And the night before I got to the studio, we did a live burn. I got set on fire. Well, I rather was in the fire, but my parts of my helmet melted and everything. And then I drove straight to the studio. So like, I was exhausted I drove through the night, got to Chicago, started recording at 10 a.m. the next morning. But that's, basically the record was my vacation. That was my time away from the stress of work. So it was, I would say that was the most out of the ordinary for me for the record. But other than that, I think it was a pretty uneventful recording process.
That's a challenge in itself. It's good that you weren't like there wasn't anything crazy that challenged you in the studio, but having to balance real life stuff, actual life stuff with this work as well is challenging enough. When you kind of look at and reflect on the overall studio experience, do you have any particular memory that jumps out from a really positive perspective? Just something that was just either a lot of fun for you to do, or just something you thought, yeah, that was cool.
It was really fun to have no idea. Again, I bring up that song "And Take It." It was really cool to have no idea how that song was going to sound. We had a drum part written, and we said, all right, we'll figure everything out in the studio. So it was really fun to just come up with the guitar parts and the synth and everything and just kind of build it. And everybody just having no idea where it was going to go. Beyond that, one of the coolest things we did was Weekend Nachos played an after show after the Chicago Rumble one night. So Andy, who's in Weekend Nachos, we had to record. We had to end about 2 hours early so he could go play the show, and he guest listed us. So we recorded all the way up to, went there and met up with our buddy Devin, who was in Remembering Never and is in Chorus of Demons, and hung out with him. And he was asking about the record. We're like, dude, why don't you just come by and like jump on a song or something? So he came by the next day, and he's one of the voices doing the call and response on the last song of the record. And that was just running into him at the Weekend Nacho show and be like, oh, why don't you just come in, man, do something. Had no idea what he was going to do. So we just kind of came up with something on the spot. And that was just something that just developed out of nowhere.
Never to be repeated, a unique moment in time. You brought up "And Taketh" a couple of times. Was there times when you all as a group thought this isn't going to go on the album? This is either too experimental or too weird.
It was me, and while recording it, like I started doing the clean part, and they had turned off a couple things on my headphones so that I could hear myself, and all I'm hearing was this clean guitar. It's like he filled out this one part on acoustic, and all I could hear was that and the drums, and I'm thinking, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? I'm like, this sounds like some bullshit. And they were all in the studio hearing everything else, and they were like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And then I'm like, all right, and I just kept trying. I'm like, this sounds really dumb, everybody. And then Andy goes, oh, all right, hang on, these channels are off in your headphones. Turned it on, and then everything made sense. But that was after I had tracked the vocals. So I was kind of tracking the parts, thinking this is definitely not going on the record. This is just us kind of being wankers and making stuff up. And so after I tracked the vocals, everything came in, and I heard what they were all hearing and why they weren't giving me notes, whereas I was in the booth going, this cannot be making any kind of sense. So it was just, again, one of those happy accidents.
I love it though. I love it. And I love that it comes in the latter half of the album as well, because at that stage we've kind of gone through such a journey of extremes plus melody and stuff like that. In fact, that follows like you've got Save Point, which is a kind of unique little position one, and then that's followed up by the Damning Variable, which is just absolute chaos. So those two combine and then having and taketh a little bit later on, it's a great flow. I'm sure how much we mentioned it earlier on, putting the album together, how much work went into putting the track list together, getting this order right, ensuring it flows.
So we had no idea how it was going to go going into the studio. We just kind of knew that Make Your Pain was going to be the opener.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. And even then we were like, yeah, let's see. And then when we after we recorded, I was on my way home just listening to it, and they were at the studio. I left a day early, and they were finishing up some stuff. And I kept listening to the record, and I would just piece songs together. I would be like, okay, what makes sense to come after this? Or what does this sound like it would come after? And I had put together my idea, and I texted Mike and Kyle, and they were doing the same thing, and they literally had the same list as me.
Yeah.
So it was just all of us listening to it in different places at different times, and the record felt like it flowed in a specific direction. And we hadn't discussed that. So that was just the moment where we're like, all right, well, that's the order then. Because for the to be 11 songs, all the different possible results we could have come up with, and we came up with the same list. I was like, well, that's it. That's even if something doesn't necessarily make sense, that's good enough for me, because that we all have that same feeling after sitting with these songs for the last week. So again, it very easily came together. It was not a lot of trial and error on that. Maybe in a couple of years, like, we should have closed with this or that. But otherwise, very easily.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when you're all agreeing immediately without actually discussing it, then it pretty much tells you how you need to do it. But how would you like a listener to experience the album? Like, obviously, ideally you want them to listen to it beginning to end and so on. But is there another way that you think, okay, cool, people could experience it this way?
So, I was never, when I was younger, I didn't start collecting vinyl till I was older. And when I listened to entire records, it would be on iTunes or on a CD. But I was, like a lot of people, especially in the MySpace era, it was whatever singles were out or whatever I downloaded. And often when I downloaded albums, it's from different sources, different orders. I think like my version of You Fail Me by Converge had like some No Hero songs on it when the first time I downloaded it. And so the songs always individually spoke to me in a way, and I started to get a better appreciation of entire records as I got older. So for me, I would like people to hear specific aspects of the record and decide if that record is for them, because I would love to believe people listen to the whole thing, but if people can't get hooked within the first 3 songs, they're never going to finish the whole thing unless they're being forced to in a review or something. So for me, I would ideally like people to, as intended, hear the very beginning of the record, whether that's the first 2 or 3 songs. And if they listen to the rest, then that means, they wanted to hear it. So me, ideally, I would love people to be able to hear the very beginning and decide for themselves, do they want more?
There it is, absolutely. And fingers crossed they do. I suspect they will. I hope that this album will be incredibly successful, whatever that means. Which is my final question for you, Nick. Success. What would success for this album look like to you?
In terms of something numerical, it would be selling out the first pressing so that we can order the second, get more cool variants like that. That's on the first record when we did that was a really good milestone for me. Success to me is being able to continue to do this in a way where it's been paying for itself like it has. If this record does well enough where I can continue to talk to strangers about, like moments like this, I'm talking to you, you're on the other side of the world, and you and I are talking about stuff because me and my friends happened to write a couple of songs in our 30s. If I can continue to have experiences like that You know, that's more opportunities than I ever thought I'd be able to have when I was younger. I'm getting to play this year with some of my all-time favorite bands I never thought I would even get to see, let alone play with. I think my biggest goal this year would be if this record could take us back around the world. If we could go back to the UK, Europe, go to Europe for the first time, or Japan or something, that would be the moment where I'd be like, okay, we're doing something right. Somebody wanted to bring us out thanks to this record. I think that would be my litmus.
And I think that's a very fair goal to have, particularly as the album isn't out yet and it's got plenty of legs to go. Let's remind everyone, a Vivid Depiction of Collapse, May 16th via Smartpunk Records. Nick, you give me half an hour of your time. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Very much.
Wish you all a success for the release period, and I hope you get to enjoy the next week or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no idea what to expect, and I'm trying to have no expectations so that everything is just an upwards movement. So I'm very interested to see it how it all comes together.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.